Thank you, buddy. All right. I'm going to be reading out of Hebrews tonight, chapter 11. I'm going to read verses, 24 through 26. And it says this: By faith, Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasure of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. Now, a little bit of background info on this before I dive in. During the time of Moses, have y'all heard of Moses? Y'all know who Moses is? Somewhat. Y'all heard of the 10 plagues and God delivering the children of Egypt or the children of Israel out of Egypt and all that stuff? You heard of that? Have you heard of that, Riley? All right, well, let me break it down a little bit for you. So during the time of Moses, the Hebrew people, who were God's chosen people according to the scriptures that we see in the Old Testament, it's a group of people that God chose that he was going to reveal himself to in order to use them to reveal God to the entire world. So the Hebrew people being the chosen people, right? Nowadays we call them Jewish people, right? It's from the same thing. So this Hebrew people is taken captive into Egypt during the time of Moses, and they're living in the land. And the Pharaoh, which is like a king, the ruler of Egypt, he decides to start treating the Hebrew people very harshly because they grew in large number, and they were afraid that if another country, another nation comes to try to overthrow us, then the Hebrew people can join in with them and they'll defeat us because there's so many of them. So the Pharaoh decided to issue a decree, an order to all the midwives and his soldiers to kill all of the firstborn or newborn baby sons of the Hebrew people. So that order went out. Some of the midwives did not obey the order from Pharaoh because they feared God, and God blessed them for it. Others did obey, and they killed a lot of children. Very bad stuff. A midwife is someone who comes whenever and helps deliver a baby. So, yes, very bad. Very wicked king, very wicked nation, the nation of Egypt. Very bad. They followed all types of false gods and did a lot of things that we would consider as unimaginable, or we wouldn't even be able to conceive that a human is able to perform such acts of sin. Okay, so very wicked people. So Pharaoh gives this order. It goes out. Some of the midwives don't obey. Some do. When the time comes and Moses is born, Moses' mom, instead of obeying the order to throw their firstborn sons into the Nile River, she makes sort of a waterproof basket for him, puts Moses in the basket and lets him float down the river in hopes and praying that someone would rescue him. She couldn't bear to just throw her kid in there or allow somebody else to. So she hid him for a while, put him in the basket, sent him down the river. While Moses is floating down the river, he runs into somebody. By chance, it was who? Anybody know? Pharaoh's daughter. So the daughter of the Pharaoh that issued this order finds Moses in a basket, gets him out, and adopts him as her own son and raises him in a place of prominence, of glory. So Moses is literally within the family. His adopted grandfather, or being adopted, his grandfather is the Pharaoh of Egypt. Now, that's important because it allowed Moses many opportunities that his Hebrew brothers and sisters that he was truly a part of would never have gotten. So he wouldn't have been mistreated. He wouldn't have been enslaved. He wouldn't have been treated harshly. He wouldn't have been bound by chains and forced to do some of the crappiest work that you could possibly think of during that time. So he would have had all of those advantages being the son of the Pharaoh's daughter. So she raises him and brings him up in her house. And again, Moses grows in popularity. He grows in prominence. The people respect him. He doesn't deal with anybody persecuting him. He doesn't deal with any judgment or anything like that from anybody else. He's able to fit into their lifestyle. But there came a point in his life, and that we all have to come to, every single one of us, where we have to make a decision like Moses. Moses had two options on the table. Number one, I can remain in my Pharaoh's daughter's home and adopt that name for myself and make that my identity and live in peace and comfort. I'll have all the wealth. I'll have all of the land I want, the houses, the whatever he could have imagined he had access to. I can choose that path, or I can choose to identify myself with God's people, with the Hebrew people, and be mistreated, be tortured, be enslaved, and have to be persecuted from the Egyptian people. So he has two options: identify with the people of God and God's will for his life, or identify with those living in sin and opposed to God, but I'm also going to be comfortable and I'm not going to experience a whole lot of trouble. Every single one of us in this room and outside of this room, every person that has ever lived throughout all of humanity has had to make this type of decision. Now, the specifics are different for everybody, but we've all had to come to a point to where we ask ourselves, and we might not even do it knowingly. Many times I think people just choose because that's the direction that they were going in naturally, and that's just how it works, and that's the direction that they find themselves going in. But we're not going to leave anything up to chance tonight. I'm going to lay out specifically your two options. Same as Moses. You have a decision to make. Whether you're a Christian or you're not even a Christian right now, this applies to both. If you are saved, you have a decision to make. Am I going to choose to identify with the world around me, where it will be comfort and easy? Or am I going to choose to identify with God and his people, where I know there will be difficulties and there will be struggles and there will be trials and people make fun of me, and I'm not going to get invited to the concerts that my friends go to, and I'm not going to get invited to the parties, and I'm not going to be welcomed into the friend groups that I want to be welcomed into because that's what's popular and that's what everybody else is doing around me. Two decisions. I can identify with God and his people and live a life that's pleasing to the Lord, which will cause trouble and it will separate you from the world around you. Or I can choose to live in the world and be just like everybody else. Then I won't have to deal with being made fun of. I won't have to deal with anybody excluding me from their groups and excluding me from the events and the vacations that they go on, and so forth. Two decisions, two options. You can only choose one. And don't ever think, and I'm just going to be real with you guys tonight, right? Don't ever think because you show up here on a Wednesday night, or you come to a camp, or you go to a worship night, or you come on our youth events, that somehow that means I've chosen a life pleasing to the Lord and I've chosen to identify with God and his people. You haven't. Choosing a life with God and with his people, identifying with him, is a lifestyle change that goes so far beyond just coming in here on a Wednesday night and sitting down and listening to me and listening to Grayson and going to the worship nights in the camps. I can't tell you guys how many times I walked up those stairs on the opposite side. That used to be our youth room over there. And I walked in that room as high as you could possibly get without dying, and sitting there every single Wednesday listening to my youth pastor preach. I went on all the trips. I was at everything. I was first one in, last one to leave. I know what it's like to show up and sit your butt in a seat and pretend to play Christian while not actually living that out with my life. And I think the reason why, and I know it's hard, I know it's not an easy decision to make, because I'm going to tell you right, let there be no question. If you choose a life with Jesus, you are going to struggle with the world that you live in. You will not mesh with them. They will not like you. They will talk crap about you. They will make fun of you. They will exclude you from their friend groups. It will happen. There is no way it will not happen. So understand that. I want you guys to get this, because there's an importance to counting the cost. Have you ever heard that phrase before? Counting the cost. To count the cost means to consider everything before I'm going to make the decision. And I don't want any of us in here to say, oh yeah, I'm a Christian and I follow Jesus, but not knowing what that actually costs and what that actually looks like and the stuff that you're going to have to face. I want you to make an informed decision. I don't want you to just think, oh, living as a Christian and living with God's people and in God's will is going to be all fun and it's going to be happy all the time and nobody's going to have an issue with me and everybody's going to love me. Jesus said that if you love me, if you're my friend, the world will hate you. They won't just pick on you and scoot you away. They will hate you. They'll hate you. And there's no running from that. But I want to tell you, that's okay. Because the lifestyle that they've chosen and the lifestyle I hope none of you have chosen or walking in right now of sin, watch this, always produces death every single time. Now, notice in verse 25, the author of Hebrews says this, choosing rather to be mistreated with God or with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. How many of you guys have heard sin is pleasurable for a season? Have y'all heard that phrase before? Well, whoever told you that, if you haven't heard it, you're hearing it tonight. It is absolutely true. Sin, a lifestyle of sin, it will always be fun for a season. And you will have a lot of fun. I promise you. You will have so much fun. Man, I had so much fun when I was in high school living in sin. When I was doing drugs and going to the parties and drinking and sleeping around, I had a lot of fun. But there came a point in time, and this happens to everybody, when you start moving in that lifestyle of sin, there will be a season where it's fun and it's enjoyable and it's new and it's exciting and it pleases your flesh, but it will always come to an end. And I promise you this, the price and the consequences that come along with getting to the end of that season of sin, you don't want to pay that price. You do not want to deal with those consequences. I'm 26, about to be 27. I got saved in 2016. So 8 years, and I'm still dealing with the consequences of my lifestyle of sin from 9th grade to 12th grade. I'm still dealing with that today. I'm still dealing with it today. Me and Grayson and Cody went to one of the neighborhoods around here before church, and we were just praying for people sharing the gospel. And the neighborhood that we were going to, I used to sell drugs in when I was in high school. So for me, I was scared just to even go into this neighborhood and have certain people see me that I thought may be holding a grudge from a long time ago. And fortunately, that didn't happen. But I'm still dealing with a fear, and that's a very small consequence to have to deal with. It goes a lot larger than that. I have friends, I have people that I went to school with, that I met, that I knew, hung out with, that I sold drugs to and that they took for the first time, got hooked, and eventually died and OD'd from drugs. And I have to put my head on a pillow at night, and I have to realize and admit to myself, I played a part in taking that person on a path of sin that led them not even just to spiritual death, but physical death. And I played a part. Now, it's not all my fault. People have the ability to make their own decisions. But we all play a part in everybody else's life around us. If you're walking in sin and you are heading in a path of death, you are going to take people with you. You cannot walk in that lifestyle and not pull people in with you. Same thing if you're a Christian and you're truly following Jesus and you're sharing Jesus with others and you're living a life that's pleasing to Jesus, He is going to use you to pull others in and bring you into that family, bring you into God's family. You cannot, whichever direction, whichever lane you put yourself in, life or death, righteousness, holiness, living for Jesus, or sin, you are going to affect the world around you. It's just a natural byproduct of you walking in one of those lanes. You're going to pull people in. And I promise you, the path of sin is going to require you to pay a price that guys, I promise you, you do not want to pay. You don't want to pay. And all it takes is one little step. I think the first thing I ever preached coming back here at youth was talking about the little steps that you take. Some people, when they get on that path of sin, like myself, I'd say I was about right here. That's how the pace that I was going further and further in sin. Some people take very large steps and they get right into some pretty bad stuff and they fall deep into sin. Some people, like some of the friends that I had, or people that were Christians or professed to be Christians, would do this here. And the danger is the people that are doing this here think they're good because the steps aren't that big. But that's the problem, because you don't think that you're going in a different, you're going in the wrong direction, but the steps are so small, it's not really affecting you. It's not hitting you the way this step would be, going right into something that's just pure evil. So if you are this person and you're going like this, just tiptoeing, barely just inching your way into a lifestyle of sin, it's deceptive because you think that it's not that big a deal. I'm just taking little steps. I mean, guys, I didn't start out 12th grade in my life of sin. I didn't start addicted to cocaine, smoking weed every single day, going to every party, sleeping around with a bunch of different girls. That did not just start one day. For me, it was, okay, I'll start doing tobacco. I'll start using that. And then I'll start lying to my parents. I'll start sneaking out a little bit. I'll start talking to girls I know I shouldn't talk to and have stuff from them that I shouldn't have and send stuff to them that I shouldn't send. Oh, and then maybe I'll start smoking some cigars, and then I'll start smoking some weed. And then I'll take my first pill and I get hooked on that. So then, man, I want to try some other things and explore. So then I start doing cocaine and I get addicted to that. And then I get addicted to that, and I'm thinking, man, in order to fuel all of this lifestyle of sin, I need money. So I'm going to start selling drugs, and I'm going to start bringing other people in on that, and I'm going to start dealing drugs to the students around me, and I'm going to start pulling them into my lifestyle of sin in order to feed my lifestyle of sin. And I just go on this direction, and eventually I found myself over a 4-year stretch in a place of brokenness and spiritual death that I can't even express it to you. A place of absolute brokenness and desperation for anything that God could do for me. Because I knew I couldn't rescue myself, and I knew I couldn't pull myself out of it. I knew I could not resist the temptations myself. And I'm almost thankful that I got to that place of brokenness and pain and being so lost and so far from God, because it was there I was able to open up my ears and hear and come back to Him. But that didn't necessarily have to happen. I could have remained the course that I was on with Jesus, avoided the lifestyle of sin, avoided the death, and avoided all the consequences that I've had to face since then. I could have avoided it by making a simple decision. Now, it's not an easy decision, but it's simple. I'm choosing Jesus, and I'm going to follow Him, and I'm going to live in a way that's pleasing to Him. And people are going to talk crap about me, and they are going to not want to be friends with me, but I don't care. I'm not going to care. And if I start to care, I'm going to remind myself that I don't care, and I'm going to keep walking with Jesus, and He's going to be my everything. So every single one of us has to make that decision. Even if you've gotten saved and you've accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and you're somewhat living for Him, but you're kind of teetering back and forth, you're just sitting right there on the fence. You want to live for God, but you find it hard, and you don't want to pay the price, and you don't want to count the costs, and you don't want to lose the friends, and you don't want to lose the opportunities for the concerts and the parties and all this stuff. And you're just kind of right there in the middle. It won't be long. Unless you make the decision to go all in with Jesus, you are going to get over on that side, and you are going to start walking with the world. And again, it's going to produce death, pain, and suffering. It'll be fun for a season. I promise you that. It will be fun. You'll enjoy it for a little bit, but it will come to an end. And you will be spiritually dead and on your way to an eternity separated from God. And none of us want that. I don't want that for any of you. I don't think you want that for yourself. So do yourself a favor and make the decision. I'm going with Jesus, and I don't care what it costs me. Amen.